Thank you for joining me today for this review of clipping techniques here at the Lindseth Climbing Center. Discussion of the concepts that we're going to be going over, as well as demonstration of these skills, will be a first step towards passing your lead certification test. So this video will serve as a review in preparation for the test, but is equally useful if you're just getting into lead climbing and are trying to understand the concepts. Before we get into the techniques, just a review about the gear that we're using today. I've got a clipping station here that resembles one of the anchors at the top of our lead roots. It's composed of two draws, or clips, we sometimes refer to them alternately, and they're made up of a quick link, a sling, and a carabiner, in this case 2 carabiners pointing in opposite directions. For the rope, I'm going to be using a length of rope I've actually spliced together 2 different colors right about at the spot where I'm going to be making my clips, so that you can see the difference between the climber strand and the belay strand. So, our goals when we're climbing and clipping are to get as high as we can on the route, obviously. Meanwhile, we're going to be clipping the rope in to advance our high point. That way, if we take a fall, it is not unnecessarily long. Now, granted, we're going to be taking longer falls when lead climbing, but the longer the fall is, the more risk we are of hitting the ground, hitting our belayer, hitting other people, other features on the wall, in a way that's out of our control. So we're going to try to control that risk as much as possible by making our clips. When I do make the clip, I want to be able to do it correctly, safely, and efficiently. When I say correctly, I mean the rope is inside the clip such that the climber strand is coming out the front towards me. The belay side is going back down towards the belayer. It's behind the clip. That way, if I was to fall, I'm going to fall out in space and get caught by my belayer. When I talk about safety, I'm talking about the choices that we make when to clip and the technique that we use to clip that are going to reduce the risk to our bodies and to others while we're doing it. When I talk about efficiency, I want to be able to save as much energy as possible for the climbing, so I want to be able to make those decisions quickly and make the clip quickly and be able to move on from it quickly. Okay, so let's get into the actual clipping. When I get to the clip, I'm going to be looking to place my body in such a way that the clip itself is between, say, my lips and my hips. I don't want it to be too high, I don't want it to be too low. When I get there, the gate's going to be facing either away from me or towards me. So I'm going to refer to this as an outside clip when it's facing away from me. I'm going to refer to this as an inside clip when it's facing me. Now, many people make inside clip using a snapping technique. I'm going to start with my palm up, slide my hand up a little past the gate, flip my hand over so that I'm pinching the rope with my thumb and forefinger, steady the draw with my middle finger. I'm going to bring the rope up and push the rope through the gate. Now, when I do this, I want to make sure that I'm not sticking my hand too far in there, so if I was to fall, my hand's not getting snapped by the draw. I also want to make sure that I'm not placing my finger through the gate, potentially puncturing myself in the event of a fall. So, I'm just going to use the pad of my finger to stabilize, and when I clip it in, you'll notice my thumb is going past the gate in front of it. So one more time, start the knot, slide my hand up, palm up, flip it over into a pinch, stabilize, make the clip. For an outside clip, I'm going to start in the same way. My palm up, I'm going to slide past the clip, then I'm going to reach behind the clip, curl around so I can stabilize the clip, squeeze the rope through in the back. Now this one's a little bit trickier just to get the stabilization point, but essentially there's pressure between my middle finger and the heel of my hand here, and I'm going to squeeze the rope with my thumb, and you'll notice that it's going now behind the gate, not through the gate. We like to teach this technique because it's easy to kind of go from one to the other without really losing your grip of the rope. So I can make an inside clip, I can make an outside clip. Now, of course, you're going to need to be able to do this with both hands from either side. So if I was to slide to the other side, I'd be using my left hand. outside clip. Again, squeezing my thumb behind the draw. Inside clip, flip it over, snap it in. Sometimes you're going to be clipping across your body. So if I'm holding on to a hold on one side of the draws and using the opposite side of my body to reach through, I'm not going to be able to use the same technique to make an outside clip. I'm going to have to reverse it basically and turn this into an inside clip. Same goes for the inside clip. If I'm reaching across my body, I'm going to have to use an outside clipping motion to stabilize and clip that in. What's great about clipping is that you can practice this on the ground many times until it becomes normalized for you and you develop your muscle memory. So at your gym, if you're able to get a carabiner or a draw and hang it off of a feature, or in our case, walls, you can practice this with a length of rope. It doesn't have to be very long, just so you can dial in the technique before having to do it while climbing. And then, you can drag a tail of rope with you while you're top rope climbing and practice clipping in while you're climbing as well. All right, I've moved in nice and close here so that you can see the clipping from the front a little closer, see what's going on. So again, when I make my inside clip, I'm going to bring my hand up, palm up, flip it over, stabilize, snap it in. Palm up, flip it over, stabilize, snap it in. For the outside clip, palm up, reach behind, snap it behind. Reach up, snap behind. Again, the stabilizing here is happening between these two parts of my hand, and I'm trying to angle my hand so that I can't fall into the gate and potentially hurt myself. Remember, with inside clipping, we don't want our fingers too far inside the gate, hooking onto it, supporting us. There's a chance of breaking your finger if you fall just the right way there. And if you're grabbing up here and fall into the draw, you could impale yourself, which wouldn't be too comfortable. So make sure you angle your hand so you don't end up putting yourself at risk, or stabilizing with just a pad is often enough to get that incorrect. All right, so when we get to the top of our climb, we're going to have to clip two draws at the same time. So you're going to be making an inside clip and an outside clip, but the mechanics are a little bit different. So you can start in either way. If you prefer to make the inside clip first, make your inside clip. Then you can let go of the rope, bring your hand under the belay side, and now I'm bringing the rope in front, just like I would for an outside clip, and squeezing my thumb behind. And when I set it, I want to see the draws lying nice and flat together. The gates are facing in opposite directions, and the rope is trapped between the two of them like a Venn diagram. So this is a correctly clipped anchor. An incorrect anchor would look something like this, where the gates are facing in the same direction and there's twists in the draws. So let's look at that clip again. I'm going to make my inside clip, then I'm going to reach below, squeeze it behind, set it, looks great. If you prefer to start with the outside clip, you can make your outside clip like you normally would. And then I like to let go, reach over the back of the climbing side, grab the belay side into the same pinch that I would if I'm making an inside clip, stabilize, snap it in. Same result. There are other techniques for doing this. There are some where you don't have to let go of the rope. Maybe I make the inside clip, pull the rope behind the other clip, and snap it in. It takes a little practice to get that right. It's not my typical method of doing it. And there's ways of doing the outside clip first, where I might make the outside clip, flip my hand over, and then snap it in. Again, not my preferred way, so I'm a little out of practice on doing it. But it's good for you to practice so that when you get to the top of the wall, you'll have a method that you can rely on and not have to think too much about when you're really pumped out and trying to get anchored in when you get down. All right, let's talk about what can go wrong. So there are 4 big hazards that we're basically trying to avoid when we're climbing and clipping. Back clipping, Z-clipping, skipping clips, and this is less of a clipping error, more of a body positioning, but having our legs or our body parts behind the rope while we're climbing, which puts us at another kind of risk. So let's break down each of those. All right, back clipping. So a correct clip, like we said before, has the climber strand coming out the front, belay side going down the back, but sometimes that can be reversed. If I make the clip incorrectly, usually because I'm using the wrong technique or I've started in a different hand position than I normally would, I can end up like this, where I've got the belay side now coming out the front, climber side in the back. So what's so bad about that? Well, if I was to continue climbing, if I'm falling, there's a chance that the rope could fall over the gate, unclip itself, and that would expose me to a much greater fall. You can imagine if this was the first or the second clip, that could be catastrophic for me. So, obviously I don't want that to happen. If I have back clipped, I'm going to need to fix it, and I'm going to need to fix it while hanging on the rope, on the root. So, I'm going to have to find a stance that's comfortable. I'm going to need to get the rope out of the draw. The way that I like to do this is to grab the climber side, pull it towards me a bit, make a little loop, and kind of stabilize with the back of the carabiner, pop it through. You notice I haven't let go of the rope yet. I can pinch it now, just like I do for an inside clip, put it back in, and voila, I'm reclipped correctly. Now, it's possible to simply dump the rope from the clip by grabbing the gate, lifting this up, and dropping it. Now, there's a couple of things that I don't like about this. First of all, it requires me to put my finger inside the gate, which I'm trying not to do when I clip in the first place. Secondly, when I drop the rope like that, all this slack is introduced into the system. My belayer is going to want to take that slack up. But the next thing I'm going to do is be grabbing the rope to reclip, and if they have to now give rope right after they've tried to take in a bunch, it might be a bit of a bungle for them on the ground, and I want to make sure I've got access to just the right amount of rope that I need. So I prefer to have control by not having to drop the rope. So let me show you that one more time. I made the inside clip. Now sometimes this might happen if I try to pinch it first. When I make my snappy motion, oops, I've back clipped. So to get out of it, I'm going to grab the inside rope, the strand that's inside the clip in the wall. I'm going to reach behind it, snap it out, stabilize, snap it back in. For an outside clip, again, if I grab the rope in the wrong way and get it into the draw backwards, I have the same issue. Now, it's true that if I was to climb here and fall, I'm not necessarily exposing myself to the same risk, but you never know what's going to happen with these things. So we want to be right from the start every time. If I've got an outside clip that's back clipped, the easiest way for me to fix it is to reach for the outside strand, right? The one that's farther away from me. And I'm going to do the same thing that I do when I make the clip. I'm going to get the rope palm up, reach behind it, squeeze my thumb out, and again, I'm not going to let go of the rope. I'm just going to swing it to the other side of the draw, get it back in, and it's correct. Let me try that again a little bit more smoother. I'm going to set up my back clip with 2 hands because I don't want to get into the habit of back clipping one-handed. That would be a habit for me, which could be bad for me. So, always set up your back clips with 2 hands, fix it with one hand. Hand on the wall, reach to the outside strand, stabilize, squeeze it out, squeeze it back in. Set it, check it, looks good, keep climbing. There are times when the back clip might be a little bit different, where now I do have that risk of popping out, but fixing it might be a little bit trickier. I can't use my outside method here, it doesn't work so good, but I can use my inside clipping method here. Oh, maybe not, a little awkward there too. So you're just gonna have to figure something out. It might be that I'm gonna pull an outside strand and pull it across the gate, flip over, back in. You can practice all of these methods and try to get really good at them. What's important is that you understand the concept behind what's wrong here, understand what needs to be done to fix it, and then have some idea about how to fix it. You can avoid this problem altogether by just clipping correctly every time. So the more you are in the habit of assessing which clipping method to use and getting it right the first time, the less you'll have to deal with back clipping. Now, if you do back clip, and you're feeling pumped, right? Can you call for a take? Well, if my knot is below the highest point on the root, then absolutely I can call for a take, and I can sit on my rope, and I can at least shake out and think about what I'm gonna do. Now, I can't fix it on a take because it's gonna be very difficult for me to unclip the rope when it's under tension. So, I'll assess what I'm gonna do, think about the method that I'm gonna use, get into my stance, call for some slack, and then snap it back in. If I want to recall for a take, so I can rest out again, shake out, I can do that, and then keep climbing. Now I'm going to talk about Z-clipping, which is a problem that happens when you're able to reach the next clip from a stance at the previous clip. And you do something that puts the rope out of order in clipping sequence. So let me demonstrate. So from this stance, I'm going to make my outside clip like I normally would. So climber side coming out the front. And I see I've got the higher clip here. I reach the rope, I grab it, make the clip, no problem. But when I step up, you'll see that we've gone out of order here, right? The climber strand is still coming out of the lower clip. The belay strand is going up and back through the higher clip. And if I'm to continue climbing, that bend in the rope is going to create a lot of friction. It's going to make it hard for me to progress. But more importantly, I really haven't moved my high point, right? I'm still pivoting off of the lower draw. So if I climb 4 feet above the lower draw, right, I may be right about where the upper draw is, but when I fall, I'm actually going to take an 8 to 10 foot fall based on the stretch of the rope. So that's a problem, right? I've got to fix that, and let me show you how we're going to do that. So right now, my knot is above the lower draw, the pivot point. So if I want to call for a take, I'm going to have to get below that. So I'm going to take a down climb move here to my previous stance, and I'm going to call for a take. And my belayer is going to give me some tension there. Now I can actually let go with both hands. Unlike with the back clip, I can fix this with my hands free. So I can hold the rope, I can hold the draw, and I can quickly unclip that. And make sure that I re-clip it back to the belay strand. And I want to make sure that it's clipped correctly here, right? So climber strand is coming out the front, belay strand is behind, nice and flat. And when I step up, I can evaluate this draw to make sure that it's not back clipped. And if it was, I'd be able to fix it. If I did have to fix this, this is why we want to make sure that the lower clip is correct, because I don't want to be, above a back clip while I'm fixing this one. Let me show you that again. So I make the clip, and the way that this happens is I reach for the rope, but I'm grabbing below the previous draw when I make the higher clip. So to avoid it, I'm going to start at my knot and then slide up to make the clip. And then I stay in sequence. So even if the draw is very close to you, right up against your body, this is still going to work. I can start at the knot and slide forward. So here, it would be very easy for me to reach below to make the next clip. But if I start at my knot and slide upwards, not a problem. I'm going to take a moment to talk about high clipping here. So you see in the previous example here, I was making a clip well outside of the lips to hips range like I talked about. And there are times when making a high clip may be appropriate and relatively safe. But if I'm going to do it, I want to do it in a way that minimizes the risk to me. So why do people do this? Folks, they want to clip as soon as possible often because that will feel safer to them. But the process of high clipping exposes you to some extra dangers. So if I reach out, right, the normal amount of slack, which is right about where the seam is, I can't reach the higher clip. And you'll see a lot of people take the rope, put it in their mouth, and then I'll grab another armful and make the clip. And so all well and good, but look at all the extra slack that's in the system, right? And I'm pulling all that extra slack out while I am also closer to the ground. So if I fail to make that clip, right, I'm going to be taking a very long fall. So if I have to make a high clip, I want to reduce that slack. I also want to avoid putting the rope in my mouth because A, the rope is dirty and all the germs that people have put on it or that the environment has imbued in is on the rope and it's going to my mouth now. Also, if I'm biting on the rope and I take a fall, when that rope comes taut, I could lose some teeth in the process, and that's something I don't really want to experience. So, if I have to make a high clip, first I can reach up and touch the clip, and that'll signal that I can make the clip comfortably. Second, I'm going to start palm up like I normally would. I'm just going to slide my hand, as I normally would, past the clip, and flip it over and make the clip. And now I have a lot less slack in the system. So when is a high clip appropriate? Well, there are a couple of places on the wall where it's relatively safe. The first is the first clip. So before I make the first clip, the lower I am to the ground, the shorter my fall is. Presumably that will be safer. So if I have to make a high first clip, that might be a fine choice to make. The second option is when I have a stable position, but the next clip might be in a place where I'll be more unstable. So for instance, maybe I've made this clip and the next climbing portion is out a roof above me. And the next draw is actually within reach over my shoulder here. But I've got a nice stable stance here and I can reach out, make a clip high above my head. If I was to fall here, yes, it's going to be a longer fall, but I'm falling straight down from the previous clip, and so I'm not going to be taking a big swing around, right? I'm just going to fall straight down. However, if I start climbing out onto the roof and now I am, kind of out in space, pull some rope, and I miss the clip and I fall, I'm going to fall down, and then I'm going to swing back into the wall. So that's an instance where I'm going to be looking to make a high clip or an early clip from a more stable position. But if you are habitually making high clips all the time, most likely you are not kind of where the root setter is intended for the clipping positions to be. Like, we have control over that, so we're going to try to put good holds to make good, appropriate clipping positions available to you. So it might just be that you have to make one more move, and now you're in a more stable position to make that clip. The last clipping hazard I want to talk about is skipping clips. Now, why would anybody choose to skip a clip? Well, there are a couple of reasons why a skipped clip might happen. First of all, you might be unfamiliar with the clipping line if there are multiple choices, that you encounter. And so if you review your clipping line ahead of time, then you're more likely to hit all the clips on the route. It could be that the climb is pretty easy and you just are in the flow and you just happen to climb past a clip without noticing it. Or you might find yourself in a stance where you're right up against the wall and the clip is kind of hidden in front of you. Or lastly, you might be on a difficult climb and you may have missed a good clipping opportunity, and now you're on worse holds and feeling like your best option is to climb higher to a good looking hold that's further on the route. But in all these instances, we're going to recommend that you down climb and re-clip the previous clip that was skipped. You don't want to climb, higher than you already are, because you've already exposed yourself to a really long fall, right? You've skipped a clip. So any climbing that you do beyond that is just going to increase the length of that fall and increase the risk to yourself, to your belayer, to others. And so the best course of action is to go downwards. So you can down climb, make the clip, and if you fall in the process, at least you'll be taking a shorter fall than you would have had you gone up higher. And depending on the terrain that you're at, let's say you're climbing out of a cave, if you skip a clip and try to go to a better hold further up, but miss that, you're going to be taking a really hard, long swing back to the wall that you came from and could be exposing yourself to a big injury. The last hazard I want to discuss is less of a clipping hazard and more of a climbing hazard, and that is backstepping. So backstepping is when you get your leg behind the rope while you're climbing, and the problem here is that if you take a fall and your leg is behind the rope and you catch the rope on your way down, it could flip you over backwards, you could hit your head or hit your body in a way that isn't going to work out well for you and is going to be hard to control. So unlike top roping, where the rope is always above us when we're climbing, we never have to think about our footwork with respect to the rope. But when we're lead climbing, the rope is always below us and somewhere around our feet when we're climbing. And so we have to make choices with every step about where we're located. If we look at the position here, for instance, if I am going to put my foot on this lower hold, I have the option to step behind the rope or over the rope. And like I said, I'm trying to avoid hitting the rope if I was to fall. So I need to look at my foot and see if when I fall, I'm going to fall away from the rope. And if so, I'm in good shape. However, if I'm on the other side of the rope and I'm falling into the rope, that's where I'm going to be able to get hooked and potentially hurt myself. So as I'm climbing and placing my feet, I'm going to need to look. And I'm going to look and make sure that if I fall, I'm not going to hit the rope. Now, if I'm going in the other direction, right, this could change. So it's all very situational. Same with this high foot here, right? Under the rope is good in this instance. I'm going to fall away from the rope. Over the rope, not so good. Now, it may be that when I step up and my stance changes, so too does my footwork have to change accordingly. So right now, this is the safe place to be, but when I step up, maybe I'm traversing over to the right, I might have to reassess where my footwork is going to be. So we're going to need to look, place carefully to avoid putting ourselves and our bodies into a dangerous situation. And I can show you this on the wall as well. So here I am making a clip, checking out my foot position. I don't like where it is, hooking the rope like that, so I'm going to swing it over to the other side. And as I step up from my next stance, and decide which side of the rope I want to be on. In this case, I want to be under the rope so that if I fall, I'm falling away from the draw and the rope. But for my next stance, I'm going to step over the rope so that I'm not behind it and right above the clip as I make my next clip. So in review, we've talked about clipping techniques and how to make an inside clip, an outside clip, how to clip the anchors correctly. We're going to recommend, right, that you use a method that keeps your hands from getting through the gate there. And when you're clipping, you're going to avoid back clipping, Z-clipping, skipping clips. And when you're climbing, you're going to watch out for backstep positions and be able to fix all of those things if you do see them right away. We're also going to recommend that you limit your high clipping to the times when it is appropriate and safe, and remind you that in all of these cases, right, your belayer is there to support you. So yes, you should be able to recognize all of these things in the moment and fix them, but your belayer can be watching for when those things are likely to happen, or if they even see them in the moment happening, and alert you to them so that you don't make them in the first place. If you can manage all of this, then you can focus on your climbing and have a good lead climbing session. Climb on.